Hello, today on the Bioanxiety podcast, we have the lovely Kiran,
Hi,
who is head of marketing at a company here. And you came here from UK, right?
that's right.
But yeah, I will let you talk a little bit more about yourself and your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in marketing for almost all of my career. I come from CPG, so mostly consumer packaged goods. I've always been in branding, and I love it. I love working in brand. I love working in marketing. I've had a career in the UK, in London, through to Birmingham, and then moved over to the US 5 years ago. So back in the UK, I worked for a company called Heinz. I'm very well known for ketchup, baked beans,
Yeah.
mayo, all that stuff. We just talked about it actually before this. um, and I learned a lot there on how to create a successful master brand. I mean, you see the red of the ketchup red, the Heinz red, and you know that it's Heinz straight away. You see the 57 lockup and you know that it's Heinz straight away. And that is truly where my passion started to grow even further on how important it is to create these distinctive brand assets and the power that they have over consumers' purchase decisions. So, yeah, branding has always been an area of fascination for me and passion, and I've turned it into a career. I did work in the UK, and before leaving for the US, one of the biggest things for me was that I always wanted to live and work abroad. Having worked at so many companies that had multiple people from everywhere, it was important to me to be able to experience being in that vulnerable situation in a different place too. So, my husband and I both started applying to different places. And I ended up getting a job in Sydney. We had Singapore as an option. We were talking in about companies in Japan. We ended up taking a job in the US, so New York, which actually worked out quite well because of the distance to the UK, especially with the pandemic around the corner. Um, it worked really well for us. So I started working when I got here for another company, focused again on CPG, and yeah, I've been here ever since. I loved it.
So, what made you decide to go to into marketing in the first place? Like when you were in school or in college, like what made you pivot towards that industry?
It's actually really interesting. I've always been a little bit of an entrepreneur, and I always had to figure out how to market things when I was younger. So I actually, growing up, I used to, my mom will hate me for this, but I used to get things like crisp or chip in the US packets, famous brands like Walker's, or specific chocolate wrappers like Twix, or Cadbury's. I used to turn the oven on and shrink them in my mom's oven.
Why?
She hated that. So what happens when you shrink them is they turn and like crumble up and become like very small. And then when they become small and quite rock solid, I used to pierce them with a little hole and tie a keyring to it. And it was very, very unique and very cool. So yeah, I did that, and then I would go to these fairs and sell them, and people would pay money for them, which is great. So it was again, that was my first. I think I was maybe 11, 12 when I was doing that, maybe even younger. Of being creative, trying something different, and then
Sorry.
you're good. And then yeah, taking like an initiative to go and sell, and that was when I first discovered my love for marketing.
So if somebody wanted to like study marketing, how would they go about it? Because I know like in England's a bit different. Like in England, we finish school at 16. So
Yeah.
like how did you go about it once you were like, this is what I want to do?
So the story I just told you, I knew quite young that I wanted. Well, I say this, I thought there's two things I knew growing up. One is that I love marketing, I love brand, I love creativity. But the second is I love helping people. So actually, after I graduated high school, as we call it here, I decided that I was going to do a degree in human resources.
Mhm.
And I went about that. So I did 1 year in human resources and realized that, okay, as much as I love helping people, understanding the psychology behind decisions in the workplace, it wasn't the right career path for me. So then I wanted to be in more of a creative space and transitioned my degree over to business and management because the first year was the same. So my story was a bit kind of all over the place where I wasn't sure. I mean, are we ever sure what I wanted
No.
to do or where I wanted to be? Um, but I ended up in marketing through my business and management degree. And then as part of the degree, I could do a 1 year placement. And in that placement, I worked for a company in marketing. And that's where I found my love and carried on.
That's really awesome. It always fascinates me to know how brands like market their product. I actually just went to Adweek.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Adweek?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Adweek with like female quotient. They invited other female founders because they're the lounge there, and it
Mm.
was insane to see like how companies target users, like what to do, like how you should go about like different colors, different ways to market. Like it's
But it's all, I think the piece that people can often forget is everything starts from an insight. This is why your consumer insights teams are so important. That's why talking to consumers is so important. And we do a lot of focus groups, always trying to poke the bear and understand why. So, for example, you decided to paint your wall green. You chose green, but why did you choose green?
why did I
Yeah.
because it's this is called meditation time.
See, there's a why. You told me the story that you painted your wall green. You didn't tell me anything else. Now I know it's meditation time. And then you keep going into why. And everyone always has a reason for every decision that they make. And that's what fascinated me. And there's so many amazing campaigns out there. So, for example, Dove. Dove is a really strong brand for helping people see the beauty in themselves. The insight is that times are changing, and with social media, the perceptions of beauty are just so different now. Like, you think everyone has to be perfect and look like they're in a magazine, and the reality is that Photoshop exists and all these different things exist, and Dove has really gone above and beyond looking at that insight of I'm not good enough to how do we make people feel like they're good enough through their campaigns. And then that equity links back to the brand. Oh, this brand has helped me feel good about myself. I'm more invested. I have more love for this brand. And then that is the power of a brand ultimately. So, yeah, one
Yeah, that's
example.
it. It's like also the psychology behind it, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very interesting. So far now you're in the US.
Mm.
How have you adapted to being here? Like, um, I know it's much different than UK, right?
Yes.
Like,
There's no baked beans. Yes.
yeah, sadness. Yeah, like how have you adapted to working in the US? Like, how much different is in the working in England?
I think working in the US, I'm not saying it's different from England. What I've experienced is that there are a lot of very smart people, um, and a lot of people that. Yes, baby, come sit here if you want. My dog wants to play, and so and there's a lot of people that just have different ways of looking at things. That people come from different states, or it's just so diverse and different, versus the UK. But also, I'd say people work hard. People work hard in New York anyway, in my experience. I'm not saying they don't in the UK, but there's definitely this kind of hustler mindset that you feel in New York that I really like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Whenever I speak to my family, they're all like, "Why do people work so much in America?" I don't know. Like in Europe, they're just not
They're
used
not,
to
they're having wine, and not always, but I
it.
think it's also you have a lot of very, very, very driven people in New York City, and nothing is easy here. So,
Mhm.
taking myself out of comfort and putting myself in one of the most challenging cities in the world where you've got so many amazing, incredible minds, it's a good challenge. It pushes you to be better, which I like.
Yeah. Talking about like working harder and growth and like changing roles and growing in your career, like I know we did speak a little bit about imposter syndrome and
Yeah.
anxiety. Can you dive a little bit into how like you work through something like feeling anxious or feeling like you have imposter syndrome, and like how do you stay balanced? Like, what does your work life balance look like? Because marketing is long hours
Yes.
sometimes, right? So,
So I think everybody has a little bit of anxiety at work, different extremes. We talked about imposter syndrome, and I think that's often the feeling of, am I good enough to be in this position? Have I done enough as the other person? Or, those kinds of thoughts are totally normal. And I think most people have, but they don't talk about it. And then once, my biggest thing is I can doubt myself sometimes. Where even people are pushing me, you should be in this position, you should be promoted. I can doubt myself, but then I have to just remind myself, like, I am good at what I do. I've got here for a reason. I have a great skill set that has made me successful so far. So how do I stop myself from thinking that way, and go with a clear mindset? And often I get to whichever next job it is, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I what was I afraid of? So I think it's a lot of it is in our minds. So the big thing for me and how I overcome that feeling is I meditate a lot. Um, well, I say a lot. I'm doing 30 minutes a day, which I think is a lot
That's a lot.
considering New York and the craziness, and trying to fit in exercise, walk him for a good amount of time. And, I do 30 minutes a day, and it gives me such a sense of calm that I can't every day I need to do it. Otherwise, I don't have that. Some people need to exercise every single day to feel normal. I need to meditate every single day to clear my mind. And often it helps me with those thoughts that I have sometimes, but also if I have any other work challenges or personal challenges, it kind of gives me a lot of clarity in that moment that helps guide how I make a decision or solve a problem. So for me, meditation is a big one. I also exercise, I also journal, I also eat well and do these things where possible. Again, there's some great burgers here that I'm not going to say no to. But yeah, so I think a combination of things it gets you into a good mindset that helps.
Yeah. 30 minutes to meditate is a lot. I'm not gonna
It
lie.
is, it is.
I can do, I've definitely done 20 minutes, but I think on a daily basis, the most I can do is five.
But that's okay.
Five.
It's your own journey. And I started
Yeah.
with 5, and until I found the one that was right for me, I there were points where I couldn't even do 2 minutes. It also depends on the
Mm.
mindset and where you're at and what's going on in your head.
Yeah. For me, the working out is definitely something that I do almost every day. Like, so I understand what you mean when you're like, I need to do it every day. Like, 'cause
You
for
mean
me,
work out?
oh yeah,
Okay.
like if I don't work out, like I feel like I can't focus on anything else.
And
Like,
like that with meditation and
hmm,
working out, I it's like caffeine to me.
yeah.
So it's like the extra boost. Hi, baby.
Um, so if there was somebody that was like, Kiran, how do I go about going into a marketing career? What kind of advice would you give? Like, where should they start? Like, say somebody that's doing something completely different right now, right? And they're like, I want to start taking marketing courses. Like, how would you guide them on what to learn? Like, first steps?
I would say look online. Like you can learn anything. You're a great example of that, where you self-taught yourself. Self-taught yourself. You self-taught, and learn a skill, and you've made a career out of it. This day and age, we have so many tools available that I would leverage those as a starting point, and then see how you can build on them, supplement them. I honestly don't think it's great to have a degree. It's great to have, these MBAs and all of this. It's amazing, and that's a different skill. But I also think there's so much you can learn by yourself in front of a computer these days.
Hmm.
You just have to have the drive and know where to look. Like AI is a big one as well
Yeah.
that is good to start learning about. So my advice would be to start thinking about leveraging the tools that we have available in front of us, starting with Google. Figure out what area you want to work in, or what is it you're trying to do. Do you own a business and you want to understand marketing more? Again, there's so many tools online, there's so many people you can follow that do a step by step. It depends on your objective. So if you were to ask me if I had my own business and I wanted to start something, start marketing or understand how I should brand, I would, what I came back to at the start, look at the consumer insight. What is your business offering a consumer, and why are people engaging and interested in your business? And then start when you understand that, you can start to build it out further from there. Um, and then always work towards building distinctive brand assets, like what's the right color? How do I
Hmm.
make that known? How do I make sure I see that through in all of my content? So you create those memory structures for your brand. and associations to the consumer. So yeah, there's lots of ways. It depends on your objective.
Are there any like specific skills that you need to be in marketing?
So that's a great question because I think often there's this perception that if you work in marketing, you're creating ads or you're, there's a crayon and coloring book, etc. It's not like that at all. On a daily basis, I just giving you kisses.
Hello.
Um, on a daily basis, I'm stretching my brain in so many different ways. Like I'm using math and working on profit and loss. I'm thinking about how to launch a new product into the category and what are the right steps in project management to make that happen. What's the right pricing and the right sizes of things that are in the market already? What's the right promotional strategy? How do I create a brief to bring a big idea to life? How do I, you know, create a TV ad and then, sometimes on set, be in production, do all those things. It's just, there's so many different ways in which your brain is stretched. And again, I just want to knock that preconception that marketing is just TV and advertising and doing that kind of stuff. It's not. Like, there's a lot more to it. So, in terms of skills, I think having the creativity aspect and the hunger to learn more and understand the real insight behind anything is super important because everything starts from that. But then on top of that, you have to be a real problem solver because nothing goes to plan when you're trying to launch a new product, for example. You have to be quite analytical. So look at trends and see, what is happening in the market that's making this not perform so well, but this is doing well. How do I look at what competitors are doing versus what I'm doing and learn from them? So that's a really, really important one. And I think so. We've said creativity. We've talked about
Analytical.
analytical. There was one more I said, I can't remember now. But yeah, I think just a combination of things and just it's not a one trick pony type of there are like you can do very specialized functions, but if you do something like what I do, you need to have your brain kind of working in multiple different areas. So it really varies.
That sounds exciting though. Like you never get bored, right? Like
It's impossible to get bored in my job. It's impossible.
yeah, I didn't know that you also go on set and stuff like that. That's like
Yeah, so
awesome.
but it's a small part of it. I'm not
Mhm.
working on TV ads all it's certain points in the year and then that's used for a year or 2 year or
Mhm.
however long. But yeah, that's a really fun part because you get to see an idea that you've worked on with an amazing agency come to life, which I really like.
Yeah, that must be like so like fulfilling when you're like,
It is.
I worked for so long on this
It
and now
is.
it's come to life.
It's always really funny though. A 30-second ad or a 15-second ad has had months of prep work. You're on set for like over 12 hours for just this thing that you see on TV or streaming device, wherever you see it for 15 seconds. It's always just a reminder. And I always say this to people, you see a packaging change when you're buying, let's say, your chocolate digestives in the UK, biscuits, or if you're buying a new pack of, I don't know, soap or whatever it is. Every time you see a change, the amount of people that have had to touch that from a reg team, a legal team, a the marketing team with the designs, the repro agent. There's so many people that have touched, and you could have just changed a word or a color, but there's so many people that you have to go through to get that out into the market. It's truly a cross-functional team effort, and I don't think people that are not in marketing realize that. To be honest, it's always fascinating.
Yeah, I did not
Yeah,
realize
I
that. I'm
know.
not gonna
And budgets and all this stuff. Yeah, exactly. Consumers, we just buy off the
lie.
shelf and think, oh, this is it. But there's so much work that goes into it.
But it's fascinating to learn about that, like
Yeah.
and I guess one final question. uh I asked this to everybody. What's the one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
I think the one piece of it is a good reflective question. One piece of advice I'd give my younger self would probably be to always just have an open mind and see where the world takes you. I do, and I think I am quite good at that, but I always thought I want to be at this company doing this, and I want to be at this level by this point. And I always just had a very, I need to be in a certain place by a certain age, whatever it was. In reality, your career can go in so many different directions. You can change countries, you can do so many things, and you have to be willing and open to adapt. So, and I've really learned that as I've grown older. So it's more to my younger self, everything's going to be okay. Just be open to it. Be open to changes, be open to opportunities coming your way and take them because you never know. You never know where it'll lead you.
Well, thank you so much. This was fascinating to learn more about you and marketing. Like, I actually had no idea like how all these things go on, for, like a brand. And for Biscuit here for being our entertainment.
It really
Well,
is.
yeah, thank you so much for this. Thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you for having me. Bye.